Here we are on beautiful Jones Street.
You saw Ted Jones.
Guys, it's been like over 7 months that I haven't smoked Nugget, and I don't really even find the urge to do it anymore. Maybe in the future I will smoke weed here and there, but I never thought that I would just not smoke weed. And I went cold turkey for the most part. For those of you who don't know the story, I had a 10th, for this particular place that I used to buy weed at, I had like a punch hole system where if you buy 9 things of weed, you get the 10th one free. I had the 10th one free and I was like, boom, I'm going to throw it out. So like February 7th was the last time I smoked weed. And I never thought that I would go this long. I probably thought that I'd be smoking weed the entire time. But I think the reason I stopped smoking weed was because of the parameters and limitations on what I was able to do while I was high. Like if I were to go on a date, I cannot smoke weed right before. I would just be slow and I'd be like a little bit sluggish. Or I don't even think that I would be sluggish. I would just be not 100% sharp and be myself. And I do feel like I'm a sharp and 100% myself if I give myself like a 3-hour window before I go on stage of not eating and just keeping the liquids to water and seltzer. And that's mostly like when I do the pod, mostly I haven't eaten for the whole day. Like today, right now, it's 2 p.m. and I haven't eaten. And I think that my thoughts flow smoother when I haven't eaten. And in the past, when I was smoking weed all the time, when I was smoking like 4 or 5 or 6 joints a day, I would need to stop smoking like 3 hours before the podcast, or I felt like I was just groggy and I didn't feel like my full self. And then that goes for saying the same thing. Like when I was on stage, I just felt like I needed to give myself a full break from not smoking weed, or I would just like lose thoughts when I'm up there. I've never really been a drinker on stage. I know a ton of comics that will eat a second before they go on stage, drink while they're on stage, or smoke maybe a little bit before their set. Or actually, to be honest, I don't know many comedians that will like smoke weed and go right on stage. I'm sure that there are a lot out there, but just being outside the comedy club, I've never really seen anybody like take a full hit of the joint and then walk right on stage. I've done that previously, but I've just have not found success in that. Ted Jones World Podcast. What's up, guys? If this is your first time listening, I guess you guys wouldn't really know that usually we have guests on the podcast, but the last few episodes I've just been doing solo. I think if you follow me on Instagram or you follow me on TikTok, you'll notice that I've been doing a lot more sketches and posting a lot more on Instagram and TikTok, and those platforms have been growing. And I'm also focusing here on the YouTube because I definitely want you guys to know what I've been up to weekly. Just on the YouTube front, if you have listened to the podcast before, you'll know that we used to do it 3 days a week. We were doing it 2 days a week, and now we're down to 1 day a week. I promise you, I'm not going to be giving up on the podcast, unless like I have another podcast situation set up, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But a lot going on in the world of Ted Jones. So this new character that I've been developing, I guess, we'll talk about this new character, like the finance bro. I'm definitely having fun making sketches pretending to be a finance bro. And it's interesting because it does kind of correlate to what I used to do. For those of you who don't know, I used to work in real estate for 6.5 years. And I think there are a lot of things that coincide with like a real estate bro and a finance bro. And I think like some of the characteristics of the two really go hand in hand. So I feel like I do know a lot about, I guess, that particular industry. So I am leaning into that. And I feel like it's working. Like the people online, it seems like it's catching on a little bit. And some people are noticing the sketches that I do, like when I'm out on the streets, they're like, "Oh, you're the finance bro guy," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." But also, it's like when you have things that you want to put forward that like you want people to know that you also do it, right? Like I also want people to know that I do accents, I do like personalities, I could do older people, I could do foreign people, I obviously do multiple sets of stand-up comedy per night. So it's like it's an interesting balance. And I ultimately would like stand-up to lead to, in the future, things that I guess I'm just like thinking, and then I'm just telling you guys that I would like stand-up to lead to other things in the future where I can showcase multiple things that I'm able to do. If you've listened to the podcast many times, you've heard me talk about just how I was homeschooled for tennis when I was 14 years old. I went to a specialized school, I should say it that way, performing arts high school. I went to professional children's school, which is on the Upper West Side because I grew up in New York City. It's a school for actors, singers, dancers, ballerinos, whatever. If I needed to go to Florida on Thursday night, they would send me the homework for Friday. And if I had a test on Friday, I can come back on Monday and take the test. So it was a special school in that I went there specifically for tennis. And during that time, when I was in high school, I was taking some acting classes, I was taking drama classes. And I think that's when I really started to realize that I liked the performing arts. And in college, I was on the tennis team for 2.5 years. And after I was on the tennis team in college, I was able to explore more because I didn't have the time crunch of being on the tennis team. So I was able to take classes, be in performing arts classes. And I think that's where I really started to realize that, like, damn, I like performing. But once I got out of college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my dad was gracious enough to give me a job at his company. So I just kind of coasted with that for 6.5 years. And while I think I did do a good job being a property manager, it was not ultimately something that I wanted to do. So I think this is more of just like a biographical episode and where I think I might be headed, or not a biographical, it's autobiographical because I'm talking about it. But yeah, I think that down the line, I would like to be able to showcase other things that I do. So it's an interesting balance. You know, I think I'm talking about it with you guys just through my thought process, because you do want to lean into things that work, but I also don't want to be seen as one dimensional. I don't want to be seen as just specifically the finance bro. It's an interesting balance. And then also just being on stage every night, I find myself that, like, during the day, I'm writing a little bit, but actually, you know what? I'll talk about this. The past week, it's been difficult. I feel like I've had writer's block. I don't know if you guys are in the creative industry or you have had times where, you know, people will talk about journaling every day, whether that's like if you're in the creative space or if it's just like a therapeutic thing. And yeah, like the last week, for the most part, I've just had writer's block. I have found that the last probably 15 sets, I'm going to material that I think is good material, but I just feel bored of doing it. Like if my set, like a stand-up comedy set, isn't 70% different each time, I kind of get bored of it. Like it's cool. For example, if a set is 10 minutes, I find myself doing 30% of the same material and then 70% of new material, whether that's going to the audience or just like reaching into my brain and putting stuff out on stage that I've done before. That's 70% new stuff. But it's just, it just makes sense that at a certain point, you get a writer's block, right? Like even some of the best writers of all time, you think J.K. Rowling, James Patterson, they in the past, I'm sure, have gone through writer's blocks. Stephen King, while they've created many novels, best-selling novels and things like that, I think hopefully, or at least I'm telling myself this, that it's normal in the process. So I got to be easier on myself. And it's tough to be easy on yourself because you don't want to let yourself get into a comfortable position where you're like, oh yeah, well, whatever, it's going to come back. I think you just have to put the pen to the paper and be like, nah, we going to make it come back. Right. Yeah. But now it's becoming fall in New York City. And if you guys have seen some of the sketches or some of the videos that I've put out, I went to the Patagonia store and got a finance vest, you know, because I got to lean a little bit into the character, right? I never know why, or I've never known actually why the vest culture in finance has become so prevalent. I mean, I guess it does make sense because like when you're in the office and if it's like 65 degrees, you want to keep the body heat in the center warm, but then you want time to play with like the arms so you don't have sleeves on it. Maybe that's a reason. I'm not really 100% sure, but I actually did talk to a guy who works in finance and he was saying that when you get to a company, I don't know if they still do this, but when you go to a company, they will give you a signature vest and it'll say the company that you work for on the chest, which is funny. So I guess it is part of the uniform. You know what I mean? But I think we're seeing more people become casual. And I think you're seeing that the most in corporate industries where the shoe game has changed over the last 3 to 5 years. You guys correct me if I'm wrong if you work in corporate and you still have to wear loafers or fancy shoes, but you'll see people wearing the comfortable type of shoes. Maybe they'll go fancy and they'll go with the Lanvin shoes, or maybe they're wearing Prada shoes, but sneakers are in. As long as you got like a nice white pair of sneaks, I feel like you could get away with it. Maybe from the ankle up, you still have to be all business, but you're seeing jeans a little bit more. You're seeing the collared shirt and then maybe the vest. That's more of like a Finance Bro 2024 look. And I think since people were working at home so much, people are so used to just being in the sweats and the sweatshirt, which is like my signature outfit. And some comedian, I'm pretty sure he was joking. He was like, yeah, Ted, you're too sloppy for me. He's like a gay comedian. He was saying that I was sloppy, but I imagine that he was joking. And if he wasn't, JJ, F you, bro. This guy was on the podcast 2 times. I guess he's like a bull buster, this guy. But my go-to outfit, especially being on stage, is a Ted Jones World shirt, even though I'm wearing a vegan tennis shirt. Shout out Shop Osorio, who made this sweatshirt for us, who made the sweatshirt for me. It's a one of one. It's a limited edition. People always talk about what's vegan tennis, and I don't really know what to say or what to respond. But my go-to outfit is a Ted Jones World shirt, some nice fitting sweats, and then white sneaks. And occasionally I'll wear a blank tee, but I don't know. Maybe in the future, if assuming things go well, I would have a stylist. I would actually like to have a stylist. Somebody to tell me like, here, put this on. Because I never really know what to wear. Back in the day, I used to wear designer clothes, which is embarrassing. Like looking back on it, just having a fat designer on your shirt. Just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you need people to know that you're cool like that. It's like, what do you I don't really understand that. And now when I see people wearing it, I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Are you really doing that? I don't mean to judge people that I literally was in the past, but sometimes I find myself doing that. I don't know if you guys do that, but if I see somebody who's like really wasted or drunk at a party, I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're out of control. Or this especially happens when you're sober at a party and you see somebody who's drunk, you're like, ugh. Like you're making a fool out of yourself. You smell like alcohol. You just like look like you're wasted. You're talking like you're wasted. What are you doing? I don't mean to judge people, but I think it happens naturally. And I think it's a newer age of comedians where we're either able to drink a drink or two a night or people are sober, which is interesting, right? But it's not like 20 years ago where comedians would wake up in the early afternoon and then they would just have 7 or 8 hours to write or not do much before their set that night. Because now it's a full-time job. That's what it feels like. I'm not shitting on comedians in the past, but now during the day, I'm writing, I'm editing, I'm shooting, I'm thinking about the next sketch. So it does feel like there's a lot to do. You know what I mean? And I think just based on what I have been trying to do, at least the last 6 months or the last 7 months since I stopped smoking weed, I'm trying to take that time that I would smoke weed and like be stoned to find my creative edge without it. I don't know if that sounds a little bit weird. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that well, but I think it's been good. I think these last 7 months have been helpful. I've been focusing more, and I'd say it's probably been, it's been like a month since I deleted all dating apps. I've talked to you guys previously before about how I was on dating apps, but this last month I've had the slight urge to re-download it. And I think that happens to all of us, right? It's like, oh, you're getting an instant dopamine rush when you match with someone, and then you start picturing your life with Svetlana and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe we can go to Russia together when we're married in 5 years. But like that doesn't, I just don't think that's the right move for me at this particular time. Like I personally, and I know you guys all have too, I'm not trying to flex. I've in my career of dating apps in the last, probably 8 to 10 years, I'm sure I've matched with thousands of women on dating apps. And then the women listening and men listening, I'm sure you've matched with thousands of people. I just prefer, I think at this particular moment, as I'm speaking to you, to meet people in person, do it raw, do it as our parents, grandparents did it. And maybe you'll bump into somebody on the street and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You knock over their books, or that would usually happen in like college, high school. You knock over their books and then you'd help them pick them up and be like, hey, what's up? I'm Ted, by the way. And she's like, oh, I'm Ashley. I don't know if that's her name. You guys know what I mean. But a lot of things are focused online, and you see a group like Snapchat, they're trying to create a new comedy wing. And by the way, I didn't even talk about this yet. So I went to the Kygo concert at the Barclays Center last weekend. It was amazing. Snapchat sent me, and I'm super grateful because it was a great time. I went alone, which is an interesting move. I don't know if you guys have ever been to a concert alone. Way different than going to a movie alone. I was there for like 3 hours. It was great. I shot so much content. I made like 80 Snapchats. And in order to make it worthwhile for Snapchat, every single Snapchat that I recorded, I had to put hashtag SnapNation and then at SnapNation. Obviously, makes sense. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that it was actually a lot of work. It felt like it was like a job. And, you know, people who work in corporate don't really understand sometimes the job aspect of being a comedian or being an entertainer. Maybe they do of like being a producer, like having to edit things and, you know, send it to this person, edit it again. But I think people are starting to take content creation more serious, as in the past, like, you know, 5 years ago, if you told your parents that you wanted to be a YouTuber, they would be like, all right, that's like a ridiculous, that's ridiculous. You're going to be a YouTube creator. You're going to put videos for free online. How are you going to make money doing that? Even if you look at guys like Mr. Beast, his family never really took what he was doing seriously until like 10 years in, and he started making a little bit of money doing brand deals. But I think content creation is becoming more of an avenue for people to live and people to, you know, actually do something positive for the world. So at this Kygo concert, it was great. If you guys have never heard of Kygo, he's an EDM DJ, and EDM really isn't my cup of tea per se, but I had a great time. It was cool. And going to a concert alone, I don't know. I felt a little bizarre since I was there alone. But if I was with anybody else, it would have been a full date. It would have been like a 3-hour date. And at the current moment, I wasn't really going to be comfortable with like going on a date there, or like bringing a +1 to that. I mean, I could have, but I just didn't. Yeah, but talking about Snapchat a little bit more, they're trying to get creators and get comedians on the platform to put in stand-up clips, put sketches, but I think they're doing a good job. So I look forward to working with Snapchat continuously and in the future. And then next month, October, I'm going to be going to LA. I'm doing a Snapchat comedy show, but we'll have more details on that as I'm allowed to talk about it, but I'm super pumped for that. The last time I was in LA, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was probably a year ago. Yeah, I went to LA last September and was doing a couple shows out there, was vlogging, but I think this will be a different trip just because it's more specific. I haven't really, this is the first time that I've been to LA where I'm going for something specific. Like obviously the times before that I've gone to LA, I've done shows out there, I've done vlogs out there, but I think this is the trip where I'm going out there for a specific purpose. Right? Like I'm not just going out there and be like, oh, I'm going out there and then I'm doing shows. Because being a comedian, anytime you go to a place, you're hopeful that you will get gigs to do while you're there. And maybe you'll have a couple meetings, but this is a specific time where I do have meetings out there, and I'm just like excited to go out to LA. I'm going to be there probably for 3 nights, maybe 4 nights, but every time that I've gone to LA before, seems like that's been my maximum. You know, LA seems to be like a great place, but I haven't heard somebody in a few years at least say like, oh, I love LA. I will never move LA. Because I think I will never move LA. I will never move from LA. Because I think things have changed recently with LA. Like, I don't want to talk negatively about it because I'm excited to go, but things have gotten a little bit more expensive, like housing wise, but that's the same in New York City. For the most part, it's the same in every city. Right? You can't really go to a booming city and expect things to not be expensive. But tell you a great thing about LA, they have an amazing booming vegan scene. And I love that. And that's something that I don't really talk about as much, or maybe I actually do talk about it, but I just wouldn't know. Because that's the thing. If you're vegan, you don't really know how much you talk about being vegan. It just comes out naturally in conversation 15 seconds into meeting someone. But being vegan, it's allowed me to be, I think, more dynamic. I feel a lot better. And it's very easy to be vegan in New York, rather. I had an issue the other day with pasta. Somebody was telling me that all pasta is made with eggs. Do you guys ever hear this? But if it's said, to be honest, as a vegan, I'll be transparent with you guys. If something says may contain, I will usually, if I could think that it doesn't contain eggs, like if something says may contain eggs, I will do my best judgment to be like, all right, does this contain eggs or doesn't? If something says like may contain milk and it's like a type of chocolate, I'll know specifically that, okay, this probably contains milk, so I won't have it. But I think I have to see it in my head. But now as pasta is being made, do I need to completely switch off the pasta move? I think pasta with red sauce at some restaurants is, if I go to a specific restaurant, it's sometimes the only thing that I could eat. So I don't know back there if they're putting in eggs in it. I would like to think that they're not. And if I know that something has eggs in it, I won't eat it. Honey has been, it's been a hit and miss for me. Like if I know something has honey in it, I generally won't eat it just because of the idea behind honey that it's made from animals. But I don't know much about honey. I will say honey is kind of like it's like an iffy subject, but I know that animals are abused for the most part when you have honey. So honey, I do tend to stay away from, but if something has, I don't know, yeah, honey and I mean eggs for sure, 100%. If something may have eggs in it, I'd be like, I don't think I'm gonna eat it. If something may have honey in it, then I probably will eat it. Yeah. I'd say for the most part, I'm 99.9% strict vegan, but if somebody's cooking like hamburgers on one side of the grill and somebody's cooking a Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger, a Perfect Burger on the other side, I will eat it. That's a situation where I am okay in eating it. But I think we'll see. The vegan lifestyle lives on. And it's being in New York, I'll say it again. It's just easier to be vegan in these particular climates that you have a lot of options. And myself, I've told you guys before, if you've listened to the podcast, I am not a foodie at all. I can eat rice, avocado, nuts, beans, and chickpeas for weeks on end. I don't really like, people ask me, Ted, what's your favorite vegan restaurant? And I don't even know what to say. And I feel like I sound uncultured in saying that, but I don't know. Whatever. I'll have a vegan burrito. We can have Impossible Meat, Beyond Meat. It doesn't even matter. As long as there's just like rice and guacamole, avocado, and beans in it, it's a fine burrito for me. Wrap that thing up. Boom. It's all good. You know, but I can't really say that I have a specific place that I like to go to. And maybe I should, but I don't know. Nothing has really spoken to me yet. There hasn't really been a company or a restaurant that's been like my go-to place. You know, and you'll find more. I don't really Uber Eats that much, but maybe like once or twice a week when I do Uber Eats, I just find myself ordering from the same place or the place that has the best deal, to be honest. If it's just like a sweet potato bowl or cashew, kale, Caesar salad, vague burrito. I'm not really that adventurous when it comes to food, unless I'm with someone who's like, oh, you got to try this specific vegan restaurant. Then I'm like, okay, all right, let's do the damn thing. But besides that, man, I just stick to what I know. I would like to think that in other forms of life, I would be adventurous and I like to try new things, but I think I do like to try new things. It's just that I'm not really that adventurous when it comes to food, because I'm like, all right, well, whatever. I know what's vegan. I know what's not vegan. So let's hit it. All right, guys. Well, this was a tornado or a blizzard of topics in this particular episode. But I think the main thing I want to harp on is that, you know, I haven't smoked nugget in 7 months, and I think it's been helpful. While I don't think that smoking weed occasionally here and there is that bad, I do think that since I was a habitual weed smoker, it did affect me previously. And if you are a habitual weed smoker, I don't think you have a problem, obviously. And well, maybe not obviously. I don't think you have a problem. And I don't think that there are really addictive qualities in weed. It's like the lifestyle. And given the fact that it's so easily acceptable being in New York City and being in major cities, wherever you're at, and it has probably become cheaper, maybe not like the legal places where you have to pay taxes for it, but see if you can do a few days without weed. You know, I would suggest that. And if you're able to do it and you're able to do it occasionally, that's cool. But given that it's legal, I think there's a lot less stigma on it. Like, it does seem like a lot of people do smoke pot, but if you could stop doing it for a little bit here and there, a few days, 24 hours, why don't you try? It won't hurt. Guys, I'm Ted Jones. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Peace.